fry bread.
Honey, hello to you and all my relatives, and welcome to the Tipi. A dramatic reading by Geraldine Chases her tale. Never mind the bollocks, here's the Wooster group. Last summer, I visited Little Bighorn, the site of Custer's last stand. I expected to see the image that appears in every internet search result. A tall, blocky memorial, framed against a clear blue sky. I expected to learn some facts and pick up a brochure on the way out. I expected groups of my fellow tourists to be talking loud on their cell phones and arguing about where to stop for lunch. I didn't expect, at the end of my afternoon there, to sit in my car, weeping. We go into every experience with expectations. Expectations formed both consciously and unconsciously. Expectations based on our exposure to media and marketing. Expectations learned from our families, peers, spiritual beliefs, and education. Expectations are a valuable tool for feeling validated and safe. Art is a valuable tool for challenging our expectations. So last night, I went to a play, CryTrojans, staged by the Wooster group at Red Cat. I expected them to totally surprise me and blow my mind. I'm grateful it's still possible for this to happen. What I didn't expect was an after-performance discussion between the audience and Wooster's artistic director that centered on the production's choice to portray Shakespeare as American Indians. It was an awkward discussion and didn't really lead to any great insight on why it worked or didn't work in the context of the play. Mostly, it felt like audience members speaking up to say, "You shouldn't have done this." And yes, it's their right to take that position, but it felt dangerously close to attempted censorship. An equally ironic coincidence and cool part of the evening was that John Fleck was in the audience. Once of the NEA 4, he was a hero to me and my peer group of theater students. In the late 80s, we just arrived to New York from Iowa. We were serious. We believed art could change the world. We believed Ronald Reagan had done serious damage to the creative world. We spent a lot of time discussing what is art and how far is too far, in a way that could only be annoying to really describe. We signed petitions against the NEA's decency clause. We were all dedicated anti-censors. So when I walked through Red Cat lobby and saw John Fleck, my heart skipped several beats. I've never figured out a way to tell an artist how much they mean to me. So I just stay aloof and walk the other way. I know, really cool. John Fleck is like my version of punk rock. I knew his work before I knew of the Sex Pistols or the Clash. He's an artist that helped form my expectations and ultimately my experiences in life. Punk rock is not usually a vehicle for feeling validated. Punk rock is not safe. And the Wooster group is like the punk rock of theater. Maybe not the early broken vomity years of CBGB, but more like the middle years when those bands signed major labels and had some corporate cash in their pockets. Like when the Sex Pistols released their first album. They went on tour in the South, Tennessee, Texas, Louisiana. Depending on your point of view, you could hate them for selling out. You could hate their music. You could hate how they looked. You could hate their album artwork. There were a lot of reasons to run them out of town. There was something for everyone to hate. Or you could love them for breaking the rules and offending so many people. You could love them because they were different. You could love them because they challenged the status quo. You could love them because they were doing something they weren't supposed to do. And don't we all secretly dream of doing something we're not supposed to do? I know in this day and age we are supposed to be very, very careful how we tell stories of and present images of minority cultures, oppressed cultures. And it's right to be careful, but I wonder if being too careful and following the rules does its own form of damage. What if there are stories that are never told, that are lost to us because of the right people weren't able to tell them? Put your expectations aside. There's no better motivation or catalyst for creating art than witnessing something that moves you to disbelief, anger, frustration, or any emotion of any kind. A little bighorn every hour or so, a park ranger gives a talk to describe the dramatic events of Custer's last stand. How, in June of 1876, the 7th Cavalry was surrounded and defeated by the Indian forces who were resisting relocation to government reservations. The relocation is a terrible part of our country's history, and it doesn't get enough attention. The park ranger that day was a full-blooded descendant of the local tribe. She was born and raised within the legacy of the great warrior Crazy Horse. She told the story very dramatically. At one point, her voice broke and she apologized for her tears. She had begun to cry as she talked about the loss of Custard and his two brothers, Boston and Thomas, who died with him at the end. But wait, I thought they were the bad guys, weren't they? It made her cry, she said, because, well, she had two brothers, and she couldn't imagine the pain her family would go through if they were lost in the battle. She could, and did, imagine how painful it was for the Custard family to experience losing their three sons. In a way, she presented such complex circumstances with empathy and openness to all points of view. That park ranger was doing the work of an artist. She defied and exceeded all my expectations. The Wooster group does too. Every time. I can say definitively that I have never lived up to the examples these artists have set for me. I didn't go out into the world and break a bunch of rules, but I'm glad they did. I'm glad they still do. Maybe it's not too late for me. Thank you so much for listening to that dramatic reading of a blog post I found online. If you have no idea what the hell I am talking about, I'll leave some links down there. If you have anything that sizzles your fry bread, let me know, and we'll take a look at it. We'll talk about it. You know what I mean? Otherwise, we'll see you next time on What the Fry Bread, when something sizzles my grease, or sizzles my fry bread, or whatever I say.